Have you ever felt it, that constant buzz of modern life? Like a low-grade stress just humming away in the background all the time.
Oh, definitely. Or just the sheer amount of information coming at us. It's overwhelming. You feel like you're always falling behind.
Right. Or maybe it's, the responsibilities piling up, whether that's being a new parent, which is huge, or maybe launching some chaotic new business venture.
Uh-huh. Or even quieter struggles, things like addiction, which people often deal with alone.
Exactly. And even success brings its own challenges, right? Suddenly you have power, influence, new duties you never expected. Or maybe it's relationships that just aren't working out, cycle after cycle.
Or just feeling bored,
Gee.
despite everything available. It's a strange paradox.
It really is. And in the middle of all this chaos, this modern maelstrom, I guess,
Yeah.
we all kind of crave a shortcut, don't we? A real
Yeah.
path to finding some joy, some clarity, maybe just some composure.
That feeling of being centered.
Yeah. Is there actually a way to build like an invincible mind for today's world? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today.
And the source material is fantastic for this.
It really is. It's called The Daily Stoic by Stephen Hanselman and Ryan Holiday. And this isn't, some dusty old philosophy book full of jargon.
Yeah.
Not at all.
No, it's described as a philosophical book for the philosophical life, which means it's practical, it's actionable, designed for navigating the real stuff, the everyday ups and downs.
Whatever life throws at you, basically.
Precisely right. So our mission here in this deep dive is really to pull out the most powerful, most potent bits of wisdom from this, well, it's quite an extensive collection of Stoic insights.
Like a highlight reel, but deeper.
Kind of. We want to give you, our listener, a shortcut, a way to get well informed on how this ancient wisdom offers, frankly, surprising facts and really actionable strategies, and importantly, strategies that apply to your modern challenges.
So it's not just abstract theory.
Not at all. It's custom tailored, you could say, for your own journey towards a mind that's more composed, more powerful, and ultimately more peaceful, like a blueprint for inner strength.
I like that, a blueprint.
Yeah. And, Seneca, one of the great Roman Stoics, he put it beautifully, he said, of all people, only those are at leisure who make time for philosophy. Only they truly live.
Wow, only they truly live. That's a strong statement.
It is, because the Stoics basically designed a way of life for us. Practical, radical even. It's like a harvest of past wisdom, gathered carefully, ready for you to add to your store right now in your daily life.
Okay, so let's start there. Why is a philosophy from, thousands of years ago, ancient Greece, Rome, why is it still so incredibly relevant today? It's easy to just dismiss philosophy as, ivory tower stuff.
Right. Abstract debates, academic exercises.
Mhm.
But the Stoics, they saw it completely differently. Hashtag tag 1.1. Philosophy is a practical tool, not a parlor trick. Stoicism, really at its heart, it's not abstract at all. It's functional. It's to the point. The book puts it well. It's not concerned with words, but with facts.
Facts, not just fancy talk.
Precisely. It's not about showing off intellectually or, pulling out clever lines at a dinner party. It's certainly not, as they say, employed for some pleasure before the day is spent or to relieve the uneasiness of our leisure. It actively rejects that kind of surface-level stuff.
Okay, so if it's not for intellectual showing off, what is its purpose?
Its purpose is much more vital. It's meant to genuinely shape and build up the soul. That's a core idea. It gives order to life, which, let's be honest, we could all use more of.
Definitely.
It guides action, showing us what should and shouldn't be done. Think about it like this. Without this kind of practical philosophical compass, the Stoics believed no one can live without fear or free from care.
Living without fear or care, that sounds pretty good.
Doesn't it? Imagine that constant low-level anxiety, just gone. The source points out we face countless decisions, countless challenges every single hour. And the wisdom, the actual advice we need to navigate them well, to live without that underlying fear, that's found in philosophy. Not grand theories, but practical application that transforms your day-to-day experience. It's the rudder when you feel lost at sea.
That's such an important distinction. It's not about being clever, it's about being effective, being composed, having that internal compass when everything outside feels like chaos. Hashtag tag 1.2, addressing your modern predicaments.
And what's really striking is how directly these ancient ideas speak to our struggles. Right now, the authors of the Daily Stoic really nail this connection. Are you stressed out, overworked, maybe grappling with the huge responsibility of being a new parent?
Or that crazy roller coaster of starting a new business.
Exactly. The Stoics address all of it. They even talk about the pressures of success, what happens when you do get power or influence, and suddenly the duties feel heavier than you expected.
And it goes deeper too, right? Like personal battles, addiction, relationships, that feeling of repeating the same patterns.
hmm And even those quieter, maybe more existential things, getting older, thinking about mortality, or like we said, just feeling bored and adrift even when things are technically okay.
So these aren't just like historical relics.
Not at all. Their works have always been fresh and current. It doesn't matter what's popular or what century it is, they are this robust framework for dealing with these universal human things. It's about building an inner life that's strong enough to handle whatever the outside world throws at you, whether that's intense pressure or just boredom.
So the wisdom itself doesn't really need updating.
Exactly. It's inherently applicable because it gets right to the core of being human, thinking, feeling, navigating a complicated world. It cuts through the noise.
Okay, so if this wisdom is so practical, so universal, how do we actually start using it? How do we wrap our heads around it? Epictetus, another really key Stoic figure, he laid out three core disciplines. Think of them like pillars for living a well-examined life.
Right. And he was clear, these are distinct areas for training, but in practice, they are inextricably intertwined. You can't really separate them completely.
Got it. So what are they?
They are perception, action, and will. Understanding these three is really the key to unlocking the whole Stoic mindset.
Okay, let's take them one by one. First, perception. So this is about how we see things, how we interpret the world.
Exactly. It's about our judgments, those initial reactions, the filters we put on reality before we even process it fully. Epictetus thought this was the chief and most urgent training ground.
Why the most urgent?
Because, as he said, strong emotions arise only when we fail in our desires and aversions. Meaning, if you can control how you perceive an event, how you frame it in your mind right at the start, you've basically already won half the battle against getting emotionally hijacked by it. It's about clarity over the raw data coming in.
Okay, that makes sense. Then what's action?
Action is about our impulses, our motivations, our sense of duty. It's about making sure we're acting deliberately for the right reasons, not just reacting or following habits blindly. It's where ethics meet the real world.
Like, am I doing this out of kindness or just because I want people to like me?
Precisely. Or am I doing my job because it's my responsibility or just because I'm scared of getting fired? Action hones that ethical compass.
And the third one was will.
Right. Will. This focuses on our desires and aversions, what we want, what we try to avoid, and crucially, our acceptance of fate, of what we can't control. It's about cultivating composure, freedom from self-deception, really mastering our ascent to our perceptions. It's the ultimate acceptance of what is and what isn't up to us.
Okay, so within these three areas, perception, action, will, the Stoics covered a lot of ground. Things like virtue, mortality, handling emotions, self-awareness, fortitude.
Right action, problem solving, acceptance, mental clarity, thinking without bias, duty, all these themes are explored within those three disciplines. And they aren't just abstract ideas. They are the practical tools for building that invincible mind we were talking about earlier.
Okay, let's really unpack this next concept because I feel like this is the absolute foundation. If you get this, everything else kind of clicks into place, right?
It really is fundamental. The most basic Stoic teaching is essentially this. You control your opinion about events, whether you judge them as good or bad, fair or unfair. That part is yours.
It sounds so simple when you say it like that, but pause on it. You don't control the event itself. The traffic jam, the difficult boss, the market crash.
Nope, can't stop the rain.
Right. But you absolutely control what you think about it, how you interpret it, how you choose to respond.
That's the dividing line. It's crucial. Every single thing that is outside your control, the outside world, other people, luck, karma, whatever, still presents a corresponding area that is in your control. It's the famous circle of control.
And what's inside that circle? Just one thing.
According to the Stoics, yes. Just one thing. Your mind. That's it. It's incredibly powerful when you grasp that. Even your own body isn't fully inside that circle.
What do you mean?
Well, you could get sick, right? Or injured. Or, in an extreme case, thrown in jail unfairly.
Yeah.
Those are external things happening to your body. But your mind, your ability to judge, to choose your response, that's yours. No one can take that without your permission. Hashtag tag 2.2. The clarity and simplicity.
And what's so great about this, the real good news here, is how much it simplifies things. It just drastically cuts down the number of things you need to worry about or try to manage. Think of the mental energy saved.
Exactly. Well, everyone else is running around with a list of responsibilities, a mile-long things they're not actually responsible for, or things they simply can't control. You suddenly have a very short, very clear list.
Just one item on the list, basically.
Pretty much. You find you have just one thing to manage. Your choices, your will, your mind. There's immense clarity and simplicity here. You stop exhausting yourself trying to control the uncontrollable.
Like pushing against a brick wall.
Right. Instead, you shift all that focus inward to the only place where you're truly in charge. Think about that Monday morning scenario.
Yeah.
So traffic's awful, emails are piling up, you're late. If you're mentally trying to control the traffic, getting angry, stressing about the emails, you're just draining your battery.
Burning out before you even start the day.
Exactly. But the second you realize, okay, my reaction to this traffic, my plan for these emails, that's what I control, boom, you've freed up energy. Instead of fuming, you can calmly plan your email strategy. Or maybe just breathe and listen to something useful. That's the immediate power. It frees up so much brain space. Hashtag tag tag 2.3. Daily practice of discernment.
And the Stoics weren't just about theory, they were all about practice, right? Making this real. So how do you actually internalize the circle of control idea day to day?
They advocated for a daily rhythm. A consistent, gentle, but firm mental exercise. Like stretching, but for your mind.
Okay, what does that look like?
It's actually pretty simple. In the morning, when you start your day, just take a moment. Remind yourself what's in your control, your thoughts, actions, and what isn't, everything else. Set an intention to focus on your mind.
Just a quick mental check-in.
Yeah. Then, maybe sometime in the afternoon, pause again. Remind yourself that, okay, apart from your choices, your fate, the flow of events is not entirely up to you. Things will happen. Accept the flow, but keep your inner compass steady.
Accepting reality without giving up your agency.
Exactly. And then in the evening, maybe before sleep, review the day. Where did your choices begin and end? What did you waste energy worrying about? Where did you exercise your will effectively?
And then sleep itself.
They saw sleep as a form of surrender and trust, a letting go, preparing you to start the cycle again tomorrow, refreshed. It's not about being perfect, but about consistent practice, building that mental muscle daily so focusing on your control becomes second nature. Less anxiety, more peace, more effectiveness.
Okay, this is where, for me, it gets really, really interesting because the Stoics are saying our inner world isn't just passively soaking things up like a sponge. It's actively shaped by what we focus on, what we let in.
Marcus Aurelius put it so powerfully. Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought, for the human spirit is colored by such impressions. Hashtag tag 3.1. Guarding your perceptions the color of your thoughts. It's a deep insight into how our minds actually work. And the analogy they use is really vivid. Think about your physical body. If you sit hunched over a desk all day, every day.
Your posture changes. Your spine adapts.
Right. Or if you constantly wear shoes that are too tight, your feet literally start to change shape, sometimes painfully. Well, your mind does the exact same thing with the information, the impressions, the thoughts you consistently feed it. It molds itself around them.
And that feels incredibly relevant today with the constant bombardment of information.
Absolutely critical. The book warns about the negativity bubble of television chatter or getting sucked into other people's drama and conflict on social media. So much media is designed specifically to provoke outrage and anger.
It's designed to hijack our attention.
It is, and these forces feel increasingly more powerful and harder to resist.
But the Stoic point is crucial. You still have a choice. You have the ability to put our guard up and decide what we actually allow in.
Like deciding who you let into your house.
Exactly. You don't have to let every stranger in, let them track mud everywhere, and start arguments in your living room. Your mind is your inner sanctuary. Guard the door.
And what's a major obstacle to guarding that door effectively? Self-deception. Zeno, one of the founders of Stoicism, said, "Nothing is more hostile to a firm grasp on knowledge than self-deception. It's the absolute sworn enemy of our ability to learn and grow."
Why? Because you can't learn if you think you already know it all.
Precisely. As Epictetus said, it is impossible for a person to begin to learn what he thinks he already knows. If you're convinced you're already perfect or you have all the answers, you shut down the possibility of improvement. So guarding your perceptions also means being brutally honest with yourself. What do you really know? What are you just assuming? What biases are coloring your view? Intellectual humility is key. Hashtag tag 3.2. Choosing your opinions, the power of I don't know or I don't care.
Okay, so guarding perceptions. This brings up a really interesting point about modern life. There's this pressure, right, to have an opinion on everything. Every news story, every controversy, every trending topic. To seem informed, engaged.
Like it's a moral obligation. But the Stoics would ask, where's the actual evidence that this is necessary? Are you really required to know and have a strong feeling about every single thing happening in the world? Or are you just worried about looking uninformed?
That feels almost rebellious to say today.
It is. And one of the most powerful things you can do, especially now, is simply to say, I don't know. Or even more radically, I don't care. The book argues this isn't ignorance. It's a sign of improvement, a sign of wisdom.
How so?
Think about the sheer amount of time and energy you'd reclaim if you stopped consuming every bit of irrelevant, emotionally charged news or social media drama. How much calmer would you feel if you weren't constantly outraged or anxious about things that honestly have little direct impact on your life or are completely outside your control? It's not about ignorance. It's about strategically allocating your attention, protecting your peace.
There's a funny exercise related to this, isn't there?
Yeah, think about all the bad things happening right now that you don't know about. Maybe someone insulted you behind your back or you made a mistake no one noticed. What's your emotional reaction to those things?
Nothing. Because I don't know about them.
Exactly. It proves it is possible to be undisturbed by negative things. You just need to cultivate that ability consciously instead of accidentally. Especially when forming an opinion just adds stress. Practice having no thoughts about something aggravating. Treat it as irrelevant in the landscape of your mind. It loses its power over you. Hashtag tag 3.3. Confronting emotional traps, anger, and fear. So beyond those external inputs, the Stoics were also deeply concerned with our internal battles, especially with powerful emotions like anger and fear. They saw these not just as feelings, but as actual traps. Hashtag anger as toxic fuel.
Yeah, anger. Think about why athletes trash talk, right? Or why someone tries to provoke you.
You get a reaction, knock you off your game.
Exactly. Distracting or angering an opponent is an easy win sometimes. The Stoics would say anger isn't tough or impressive, it's a mistake, a weakness, maybe even a trap someone set for you.
Right. Think of the boxer Joe Louis, the ring robot. Totally calm, precise. That calm focus was way more intimidating than any angry outburst would have been. Pure focus, unclouded by rage.
But what about using anger as fuel? I'll show them that desire to prove people wrong.
Yeah, many successful people cite anger as a motivator. Being told you're not good enough can definitely light a fire. But the Stoics would say that's short-sighted. It ignores the pollution it creates internally, the wear and tear on the engine.
What happens when that initial anger runs out?
You need more and more, right? Until maybe the only source left is anger at yourself. Martin Luther King Jr., facing horrific injustice, warned his own people, hate is too great a burden to bear, even when they had every reason to feel it. Extreme emotions are toxic fuel.
Yeah.
There's plenty of it around.
Yeah.
But the cost, the internal damage, is too high. Hashtag fear and anxiety paralysis.
And then there's fear. FDR's famous line about nameless, unreasoning, unjustified terror, which paralyzes needed efforts.
Seneca warned similarly, there is no reason to live and no limit to our miseries if we let our fears predominate. Think how often anxiety about the future just ruins the present, makes you miserable in advance of misery.
You suffer twice, basically.
Or more. It's the core of don't sweat the small stuff, but deeper. Give attention proportionally. Most worries never happen, or they're less bad than you imagine.
So what's the Stoic antidote to that anxiety paralysis?
It sounds simple, but it's hard. Let the news come when it does, be too busy working to care. When you're consumed by hypothetical what-ifs, you can't act effectively now. You burn energy on possibilities.
So focus on your job, your duty, what's right in front of you.
Exactly. If you're truly engaged in what's within your circle of control, you literally don't have the mental bandwidth for debilitating future fear. It's not about being naive. It's about being present, effective, and saving your energy for actual challenges, not imagined ones. Building that fortress of focus.
Okay, so we've talked about managing our inner world perceptions, emotions. But Stoicism isn't just navel-gazing, right? It's also about how we act in the world, how we connect with others.
Absolutely. It's not enough to think right. You have to act right. The inner work has to translate outwards. Hashtag 4.1. The discipline of action, intentional living. Let's start with action. The source uses a great example. The boss asks, why'd you do it this way? And the answer is, because that's how we've always done it.
Yeah. The kiss of death for innovation. Or just competence.
Right. It frustrates good leaders, leaves businesses vulnerable. The Stoics say we need to apply that same critical eye, that ruthlessness to our own habits. Why do we study philosophy? To break ourselves of rote behavior, to make our actions intentional.
So constantly asking, is this the best way? Do I know why I'm doing this? Am I doing it for the right virtuous reason?
Exactly. It ensures your actions are purposeful, aligned with your values, not just automatic pilot.
And part of that is focusing on the immediate task, like the Marcus Aurelius advice.
Hmm. Focus just on what's in front of us. It reminds me of Coach Bill Belichick's famous line to his players, "Do your job." Simple, but profound.
It cuts through the clutter.
It does. Find clarity in the simplicity of doing your job today. Don't get lost in the million distractions or future worries that aren't here yet. Treat each task like it matters, because it does. Botching the present doesn't help the future. Be effective now.
And how does this connect to showing what we know? You mentioned Epictetus had a pretty vivid analogy.
Ah, yes, a bit unsettling. He compared people who just learn theories and immediately want to preach them without truly digesting them to someone with an upset stomach vomiting undigested food.
No, okay, vivid.
Right. He said, first digest your theories and you won't throw them up. Otherwise, they will be raw, spoiled, and not nourishing. Instead, he said, show us the results in your reasoned choices, just like the shoulders of gymnasts display their diet and training.
So don't just talk the talk. Let your actions, your character be the proof.
Exactly. Your life becomes the demonstration of your philosophy. Hashtag tag 4.2. Cultivating meaningful connections. Choosing your scene.
Okay, so acting intentionally, how does that connect to our relationships or interactions with other people? Because others have a huge influence on us.
A massive influence.
Yeah.
You know that saying, often attributed to Jim Rohn, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah, I've heard that. Makes you think.
It does. And Goethe put it even more bluntly. Tell me with whom you consort, and I will tell you who you are. It's not about being judgmental, but about being really honest about who you're becoming based on your environment.
Especially if you're actively trying to improve yourself, live virtuously.
Right. It's about consciously choosing your scene, as James Altucher calls it. Finding peers, mentors, collaborators who genuinely push you to be better. You need to ask yourself about the people you hang out with, online or off.
Yeah.
Are they making me better?
Do they encourage growth? Hold me accountable?
Or do they drag me down? Encourage cynicism, bad habits, mediocrity? And then the really crucial question for self-improvement. Should I spend more or less time with these folks?
The stakes are high. Who you spend your time with shapes your future.
Absolutely. As Goethe also said, if I know how you spend your time, then I know what might become of you. Your associations are incredibly powerful. Hashtag tag dealing with haters and negativity.
So what about the people who aren't making you better? The critics, the difficult people, the online haters. How do the Stoics suggest dealing with them?
Marcus Aurelius, again, just brilliant on this. He basically said, what if someone despises me? Let them see to it, meaning that's their issue, their internal state. But I will see to it that I won't be found doing or saying anything contemptible.
So focus on your own actions, not their opinion of you.
Exactly. And if they actively hate you or are rude, let them see to that, he says. My job is to be kind and good-natured to all, and maybe even show the hater where they went wrong gently if the chance arises.
And the best revenge.
Ah, yes. The mic drop moment. To not be like that. Just refuse to stoop to their level. Seneca adds that seeking revenge wastes a lot of time and usually causes you more harm in the long run. Anger always outlasts hurt.
It just prolongs the negativity?
Right. Engaging just drags you down.
Yeah.
Instead, if someone is rude and you respond with genuine kindness and calm, it's like that biblical image of heaping burning coals on his head.
It short-circuits their expectation of a fight.
Totally. It shocks them.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it makes you better by forcing you to practice compassion and self-control. It breaks the cycle.
And instead of just getting mad, maybe try to understand or help.
Yeah, the Stoics suggest thinking of someone offensive like, well, like they have bad breath or BO. It's unpleasant, maybe, but getting angry about it is pointless. They have their reasons, their perspective, but you have reason and compassion. So use your natural reason to awaken theirs. Gently point things out if it seems helpful.
If they listen, you might actually help them without drama.
Exactly. No drama nor unseemly show required. It's about constructive engagement, not emotional reaction.
And a big part of this is giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Huge. Just as Oliver Wendell Holmes had that great line, even a dog distinguishes between being stumbled over and being kicked.
Right.
A dog knows the difference between an accident and malice.
So we should too. Don't jump to conclusions.
Right. Don't assume the worst. Be generous with assumptions. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe they misunderstood. Maybe they just didn't know better. It makes life so much easier for you, fosters tolerance, and saves your emotional energy for what really matters, instead of constantly assuming bad intentions.
Okay, let's talk about building that real inner strength, that resilience, the ability to face life's punches because they will come without getting knocked out internally.
And the Stoics had a radical view here. They saw hardship not as something to avoid, but as essential training, a forge for character. Hashtag tag tag 5.1. Embracing hardship as training. Absolutely. Epictetus said we must undergo a hard winter training and not rush into things for which we haven't prepared. He didn't see life as easy street. He called it a military campaign, a battle, and a long and varied one, too.
Wow. Stationed in a key post for life. That's intense.
It is, but it reframes difficulty. You're not a victim. You're a soldier, an athlete in training, getting ready for the arena.
That's incredibly motivating, actually.
Right. The source says difficulties show a person's character. Challenges aren't random punishments. They're like a trainer matching you with the perfect sparring partner to test your limits, reveal weaknesses, and make you stronger. Becoming an Olympian takes sweat.
It's not just physical sweat either, mental, emotional toughness.
Exactly. Seneca pointed out that someone who's had it easy, unbruised prosperity is actually weak. They crumble at the first real hit, but someone at a constant feud with misfortunes acquires a skin calloused by suffering.
That calloused skin lets them endure. Keep fighting.
Yes. Every struggle overcome builds that inner reservoir of strength. Makes you tougher for the next round. Hashtag takes 5.2. Focus on what is yours alone. The impenetrable fortress. And this ties right back to the circle of control, but emphasizes its protective power. Epictetus warned that if you treat external things, reputation, health, money, things by nature slavish, as if they are truly yours and free, you'll be miserable, a slave to fortune.
But if you only claim ownership over what is truly yours,
Your mind, your choices, your judgments. Then Epictetus says, no one will ever be able to coerce or to stop you. You will have no enemy, no one will harm you because no harm can affect you at that core level.
that sounds almost unbelievable, but there are real examples, aren't there?
Powerful ones. Marcus Aurelius talked about how our ruling reason becomes unconquerable when it rallies and relies on itself, becoming an impenetrable fortress. Think of Captain James Stockdale.
The Vietnam POW.
Right. 7.5 years of torture, isolation. When he was shot down, he literally told himself he was entering the world of Epictetus. He saw the optimists, the ones always saying we'll be out by Christmas, break down and die of broken hearts when it didn't happen.
Because their hope was external, dependent on things they couldn't control.
Exactly. Stockdale focused relentlessly on what he could control. His response, his resistance, his choices. He even injured himself to avoid being used for propaganda. He found strength in that inner control, not false hope.
And Epictetus himself lived this. He was tortured as a slave, walked with a limp.
Yet he declared, you can bind up my leg, but not even Zeus has the power to break my freedom of choice. That's the ultimate statement of inner freedom. No matter what happens externally, illness, financial ruin, whatever your inner citadel, your reasoned choice remains yours. It makes you almost invincible, not because bad things don't happen, but because they can't touch your core self. Hashtag 5.3, turning obstacles into advantages.
What's really mind-blowing here is how they take it even further. Not just enduring obstacles, but actually using them, turning them into advantages.
Yeah, it's a key Stoic move. Marcus Aurelius said every rational person can convert any obstacle into the raw material for their own purpose. Seeing opportunity, or at least usable material, where others just see a dead end.
Like the Muggsy Bogues example, the shortest NBA player ever.
Yeah, 5'3", constantly underestimated, laughed at. But he didn't let his height be just a disadvantage. He weaponized it. He used his size for incredible speed, quickness, a low center of gravity. He could steal the ball from giants who literally couldn't see him coming sometimes. What looked like a curse, he turned into a unique strength.
So the challenge for us, for you listening, is to look at your own life that way. What do you think is holding you back? A background, a trait, a past failure?
Could that very thing, viewed differently, actually be a hidden source of strength? Could you, like Bogues, convert that perceived weakness into raw material for your purpose? It's a radically empowering way to reframe adversity. Hashtag 5.4, the Zen of acceptance. The glass is already broken. Another pillar of Stoic resilience is deep acceptance. Often captured by that Zen story, the glass is already broken. Seneca said, fortune falls heavily on those for whom she's unexpected. The one always on the lookout easily endures.
It's not pessimism, though, right? It's preparedness.
Exactly. Proactive preparedness for impermanence. The story goes, this Zen master had a beautiful, unique teacup. Every day he'd look at it and say, the glass is already broken.
But he still used it, enjoyed it.
Absolutely. He loved it, admired it. But in his mind, he'd already accepted its eventual loss. This let him enjoy it fully in the present, without the anxiety of clinging, without the fear of future loss. It neutralizes the shock of misfortune beforehand.
It integrates the reality of loss into appreciation.
Perfectly put. And Anthony de Mello, who blended traditions, said something similar. There is one thing and only one thing that causes unhappiness. Attachment.
Mhm.
Attaching yourself too strongly to things outside your control, wealth, status, image, even people, is dangerous because you don't control how long they last.
So when they change or disappear, you suffer.
Immensely. The Stoic alternative, cheerful acceptance instead of ignorant refusal of how things are. Recognizing what is and responding with equanimity, it frees you. Love things, but hold them lightly, understanding their temporary nature.
So as we bring this all together, it feels like all these practices, perception, action, fortitude, acceptance, they're all really pointing towards one main goal for the Stoics, right?
Absolutely. One supreme aim, living a virtuous life, a meaningful life, a well-lived life, a life of character. Hashtag 6.1, character as your truest wealth and loudest statement. What's fascinating is a radical take on things like wealth and status. They believe the wise person can lose nothing. Why? Because their own goods are held firm, bound in virtue, which requires nothing from chance, and therefore can't be either increased or diminished.
Wow. So your real wealth is in your bank account. It's your character, which can't be taken away by market crashes or bad luck.
Exactly. Compare that to how we often judge status today. A monk has robes, a banker has a fancy suit. But a Stoic, the book says they have no uniform and resembles no stereotype. The only way to spot them is by their character, by how they act, how they live.
It really flips the script on what's impressive, not the flashy spending, the Roman orgies, or modern celebrity excess.
Right, not how much you spend, but how you live. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the emperor, selling off palace treasures to help his people during a crisis, or Jose Mujica, the poorest president, giving away most of his salary, driving an old VW Beetle.
Who's truly richer? Who's more impressive?
It's not about possessions. It's about demonstrated virtue. That's your real wealth, your most secure asset. And it makes the loudest statement about who you are, way louder than any car or watch. Hashtag 6.2. The marks of the good life, answering life's questions. And the Stoics directly challenge that common idea that happiness comes from outside, from wealth, fame, pleasure. Marcus Aurelius said you won't find the art of living anywhere in those things.
So where do you find it?
They kind of flip the question. Like Viktor Frankl later said, maybe it's not us asking what's the meaning of life. Maybe life is asking us that question through every situation we face.
How do we answer?
Through your actions, the Stoics say. By living the good life. By embodying the self-evident principles of justice, self-control, courage, freedom, and abstaining from evil. Basically, by being a good person.
It simplifies things dramatically.
It really does. It suggests you have two essential tasks in life. To be a good person and to pursue the occupation that you love. Everything else, potentially a waste of energy and a squandering of your potential. That's a powerful filter for making choices. Hashtag 6.3. The startup of you investing in self-improvement. And pursuing this good life, cultivating virtue, it takes work, consistent effort. Like building a business or mastering a skill. Socrates said it beautifully. Just as one person delights in improving his farm and another his horse, so I delight in attending to my own improvement day by day.
He saw himself as his main project.
Exactly. Which raises the question, shouldn't you be just as invested in building ourselves as we would be to any company? Which one is truly a matter of life and death, your inner state or the company's quarterly report?
When you put it like that, the answer is obvious. Our own life, our character, that's the ultimate venture.
And like any venture, it needs consistent training in philosophy, regular self-reflection, daily application. Think about it. A black belt still goes to the dojo. A pro athlete still practices every day, even at the top of their game.
They don't just stop because they're good.
Right. And Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, kept training, kept journaling, right up to the end. Not because they weren't wise, but because self-improvement is a lifelong process. It really is the startup of you, your most important investment. Hashtag 6.4. The Philosopher King, leadership through wisdom. The Stoics also strongly believed that this kind of practical wisdom was essential for good leadership, whether you're leading a country, a company, or just your family. Musonius Rufus said, "A good king is from the outset and by necessity a philosopher, and the philosopher is from the outset a kingly person."
He wasn't just talking about abstract thinking, though.
No, he meant the practical virtues needed to lead justly, wisely, effectively.
And this isn't just ancient history. The source mentions that Israeli general Herzl Halevi.
Yeah, a modern, high-ranking military leader. He found philosophy much more practically useful than business school or strategy courses for leadership. Why? Because war, And any demanding leadership role is full of ethical dilemmas, tough choices, balancing priorities, things that require the clarity and ethical framework philosophy provides.
So it raises a question for all of us, for you listening. How much more effective, more resilient, more impactful could you be in your own leadership roles at work, at home, in your community, if you were guided by these kinds of clear, ethical, practical principles?
It strongly suggests that real sustainable power comes from inner wisdom and character, not just external authority. Hashtag 6.5. Confronting mortality, living fully in the present. And finally, maybe the deepest driver for all of this, the ultimate motivation for living virtuously, is facing our own mortality. Which sounds grim, but the Stoics saw it as liberating.
How so?
Seneca urged us to pretend today is the end. Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day.
It's not about being reckless, though, right? Not eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die.
No, not at all. The better analogy is the soldier deploying to a war zone. They don't know if they'll come back, so what
Yeah.
do? They get their affairs in order, handle business, tell loved ones what needs saying. They prepare. They are ready.
And the stark reality is, we all have that deployment order eventually. We all have a terminal diagnosis.
Exactly. Every single one of us. As Edmund Wilson said, death is one prophecy that never fails. We're all born with it. Every second ticking by is gone forever. You never get it back.
And truly internalizing that, it changes everything.
It has to. Suddenly, what you take for granted, health, relationships, time itself becomes incredibly precious. Things others might only dream of. This awareness forces you into the present, forces you to use reason, to recognize the unthinkable power you have right now to shape your circumstances, to make the most of this finite time. The message is urgent. Don't let another day tick away in ignorance of the reality that you're a dying person.
But didn't Seneca also say life is long?
He did. Life is long, if you know how to use it. His point wasn't that our lifespan is short, but that we squander a great deal of it. Life is long enough for great things if we spend it well. But if we let it get poured down the drain of luxury and neglect through distraction, procrastination, chasing trivial things.
We suddenly realize it's gone and we barely notice.
Exactly. So the Stoic urge is, invest your time wisely.
Yeah.
Align your actions with your values. Live fully, consciously, virtuously now, knowing each second is precious. Your life is long enough. Just use it well. Make it count. Hashtag outro.
Wow. Okay, so there you have it. A really deep dive into the incredibly practical and enduring wisdom of Stoicism, drawing heavily on the Daily Stoic. We've covered so much ground.
From grasping that crucial circle of control, mastering perceptions and emotions,
To acting with real purpose, choosing our connections wisely.
and learning to see challenges not as roadblocks, but as fuel for growth, building that truly invincible soul.
Yeah, and this whole deep dive, it was really for you, our listener, to give you those practical, timeless tools to empower you to navigate your own life, the stress, the relationships, the good, the bad, with more clarity, more resilience, and maybe a deeper sense of purpose.
It's not just about knowing this stuff intellectually. It's about actually living it, transforming how you operate, day by day, choice by choice.
So as we wrap up, maybe one final thought to leave you with, something that really captures that essence of self-mastery, the difference between outer power and inner power.
The Alexander and Diogenes story.
Exactly. Alexander the Great, conqueror of the known world, stands before Diogenes the cynic, the philosopher, living in a barrel, owning nothing. Alexander asks if there's anything he, the most powerful man alive, can do for him.
And Diogenes, with total calm, total confidence, just says, yeah, you could step out of my sunlight.
Haha. And then he adds, I have conquered the need to conquer the world in that moment. Who really had the power?
It wasn't the guy with the armies and the empire. It was the one who conquered himself, mastered his desires, his fears, understood what was truly his.
So the challenge maybe comes from Publius Caesarus, another Roman writer, a former slave. Would you have a great empire? Rule over yourself.
Focus inward on your choices, your will, your mind. Take these principles, apply them day by day, and let your character truly become your loudest statement.